Welcome, Highlander fans, to Blood of Kings, a Highlander podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And on this show, we cover everything in the Highlander universe. And on this episode, we're going to be discussing Immortal Weddings, the vampire until death, with star Jeremy Brudenell as the topic. Jeremy Brudenell. Now, he's not actually on the show. That would be really, really cool. He's a little hard to reach, but we've discussed in past Blood of Kings episodes guest stars that appeared in more than one episode and that played different characters. And that's part of the topic that we're going to be discussing here. But the main topic is Immortal Weddings. But before I go on, I have to include my immortal brother here in the world of Highlander. And I'd like to welcome there Mr. Darth Smooth, a.k.a. Lee Fillingsness, a.k.a. all-around badass. Welcome, Lee. How are you?
You know, I'm doing really well, coming to you live from my palatial estate by the beach with my magically appearing microphone there.
Nice. Yeah, nice studs there. Do you actually play that piano back there?
No, I'm horrible on piano. I'm okay on guitar, but okay, cool. That's for the ladies.
That couch back there actually kind of reminds me of that scene in Kill Bill 2. And, you know, when stuff's starting to happen and he shoots her with a dart and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You know, I've reenacted that a few times, you know, shoot a lot of people with a lot of darts. It's just, it's that crazy actor life, buddy.
It's been a little while, a few months actually, since we've actually done a Blood of Kings podcast here. And by the way, if you're listening to this, make sure you check out the YouTube channel on the Fandom Podcast Network, because this episode is also on video there on YouTube, and we're going to have some visual aids to help us along with this episode. But Lee, we're discussing, this is episode 166 of Highlander Blood of Kings episode, and we're discussing Immortal Weddings, the episodes of The Vampire Until Death, with actor Jeremy Brudenell. Why are we discussing this again?
Well, you know, these shows are about this guy. We constantly see this actor. He's like trying to get married, just can't seem to get it done, over and over. And like, even in watching it, I'm like, oh wait, we never see it. And this just reminded me of my co-host, Mr. Kevin M. Reitzel, who was supposed to get married right before COVID hit. And with all the restrictions, both in America and in Australia, it took him until, was it last month or
April,
for him to marry the lovely Miss Erin Gill, who has been on the podcast. You know, if you go back far enough, and actually you did a replay of this, you guys actually did a tour of Scotland together way back in the day. And I thought, you know, coming back, there's a lot of things we can talk about. I mean, honestly, Highlander, you know, we can talk about it forever, but I wanted it to be your triumphant return. And I wanted it to be something to just kind of frame, like, people get married, but like people getting married and fighting through for 2 years to get to that woman. Like, dude, I just want to say congratulations. I am happy for the both of you. And I don't think there's a better episode we could do to bring you back. Plus,
I appreciate team
of the doubles.
I appreciate that. And this was your idea, which I thought was kind of cool, because I forgot that Jeremy was in both of these episodes that have wedding tie-ins to it. And yes, I got married right there. Check it out. Yeah. So, all right, well, we'll do that. We got some stuff to talk about here. And I did want to mention real quick though, for Jeremy Brudenell, he's been kind of busy. I was looking at his IMDb here. And before he was busy up until 1999, and then like nothing right now. So he's been doing some other stuff, I think. But he was in a lot of stuff, you know, doing some TV shows and stuff like that. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the characters that he played. And as you mentioned, it's been a while since we've done a few episodes. The last one that we did was the vampire, and I'm sorry, excuse me, we did the Parkway Theater screening actually with your friend Lee Fillingsness. I forgot about that. We did the Parkway screening one. Tell us a little bit about that real quick.
That was really fun. One of my students, I'm a martial arts instructor and fight coordinator. One of my students, you know, in her early 20s, was completely unfamiliar with Highlander. And as I was telling Kevin before the show, asked me what my awesome Team Iron Pipe T-shirt that I got from TeePublic, what's that all about? And I'm like, well, it's my podcast. Oh, what's it about? It's about Highlander. What's Highlander? And very shortly thereafter, this local theater that's quite awesome, the Parkway, was doing a one-night only showing of Highlander for the 35th anniversary.
So
And
jealous.
I dragged her to it. She loved it. And ended up doing a recording, talking about it, her perspective being somebody not a middle-aged male,
Yeah.
like pretty much all of the Highlander podcast hosts, no matter what network they're on.
The fact that you got to see Highlander on the big screen and you saw it with someone who'd never seen a Highlander before, that was a really cool show. So make sure you guys check out that interview. And before that, we went to Reunion. That short film that came out in 2008, that was a lot of fun. And then we also covered The Immortal, the 2000 series that only lasted one season, starring Lorenzo Lamas playing an immortal type character, very influenced by Highlander. So make sure you guys check that out. We have a lot of stuff there, but we're getting back into the grind again here. And I think it's time to I think we need to catch up a little bit, Lee. What do you say we head on over to Joe's? We haven't been there in a while.
Oh yeah, I could use a drink.
I've been kind of forgetting to show people this real quick. Before we do that, check this out. We got, of course, this Blood Kings here thing going on. And we're talking this dude, we're talking that dude, and now we're heading into Joe's. So yeah, you missed that back entrance there, Joe's. It's kind of fun, man. I miss that.
Yeah, it's good.
Where do you want to sit
again?
I want to sit somewhere around here. Check it out. I got Joe's well lit up here.
Let's get a spot by the stage. I want to see what they're playing today.
Okay, cool. So Lee, what have you been up to? It's been like I said, a few months. I've been busy. You've been busy. What have you been up to?
The movie game. Actually was just filming last week with a good friend of mine, Lori Roovers, one of the most glamorous actresses I've ever worked with, and just a real sweetheart. We were filming at a brew distillery. They brew beer and they distill liquor. And I realized as we're filming there that, didn't we shoot a commercial here? Or I realized while we were filming there, didn't we shoot a commercial here? At which point she reminded me that she's actually the spokesperson for their Nordic Blonde Ale. And,
really? Okay, that explains things.
And pre-COVID, I was on the way to being there. They have a Barbarian Ale, and I was going to be the Barbarian, but obviously a lot of stuff shut down. But then 2 days later, in my Facebook memories, realized it was 2 years minus 2 days from the time we filmed that commercial. So did that. It was kind of fun. I'm choreographing a drunken brawl in an alley against two people. I'm unarmed. One of them has a knife. One of them has a gun. And I have just expelled certain fluids that has made me a little bit weak.
I just had a flashback to that movie, Raw Deal with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where those guys try to rough him up in the alley, and he beats them up, and the cops show up saying, "What did they want?" He's like, "I don't know. They have trouble." I see you in that position. Anyway, what else? Go ahead.
Did a really cool kind of medieval movie. And I'm just playing kind of a captain of the guards sort of character. No lines, just a few really fun fights. The fight choreographer is a friend of mine, Mike Lubke from Art and Arms, and he let me be more creative than maybe he should. I really had some fun. I was using two long swords. Right. So, the big two-handed swords, most people have a problem with one using two hands. I'm using one in each hand, and came up with some really fun stuff. I had a 2-on-1 fight. I'm ripping stuff apart. My knees still hurt from that one because I had to take some falls onto poured concrete floor. But that was really fun. Film I was in won Best of Fest. I was actually the lead for it, called The Doll. It was a real creepy one. In my kind of speech when we got the award, I said it was really fun working on this. I gave some credit to the director, who's a first-time director, but a kid I've worked with a dozen times in the film. Always good. So he said he was going to do it. I'm like, I want to be in it. I didn't even read the script. I'm like, I just want to work with you, bud. And so we won this thing. And I said, it combined some of my favorite things, being mean to children and hitting people with hammers. I did both in the movie. That's pretty much my entire character.
Nice.
So
Very
that was
cool.
pretty fun.
Congratulations, by the way. That's awesome, man.
Thank you. Other than that, I just came back from vacation in the Outer Banks, where I made sure beer was cold and wet. And I threw a whole lot of knuckleheads into a pool.
Nice.
And by knuckleheads, that's the gender neutral plural of nieces and nephews. So.
Nice. That's maybe mixed with some noogies, something like that, maybe. So,
plenty of noogies. Like, you got to have those morning noogies. Occasionally you got the high society noogies. You got to go both. Make sure you get balanced. So
watch out, Uncle Lee's coming. Watch out. That's funny. That's awesome, dude. That's really cool. It's good to have you back talking some Highlander. So, yeah, I've been a little busy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, not really. I mean, you just had that one thing.
Yeah, I got married, man. I was
talking about No.
So, for those of you that don't know, but most of you probably do, is that Erin and I met through Highlander. We actually met on the Highlander Heart page because back in 2016, we were starting up the Fandom Podcast Network and we were getting ready to launch Blooded Kings way back in the early day. And also, I just want to give a shout out to Grant Kempster, who runs Highlander Heart. He put a nice little post on Highlander Heart and said, I believe this is the first Highlander Heart marriage, that people met on Highlander Heart and got married. And sorry to him to do that. And for those of you that want to see the picture actually here on YouTube, I'm going to add this one here. This proves that that me and my now wife Erin have done some Highlandery stuff. This is when we went to London together, and we went to the St. Augustine's Church here. And I want to mention this real quick here. I actually have my pen that I got from that place, and I actually purchased it. I donated some money for it, but I have my St. Augustine's Church in Kilburn, London there. And that picture is of us at the famous church where I guess stuff happened.
I feel like you should have stolen the pen, though. I mean, it's a Highlander set. Your name starts with K. You should have done something evil. Come on, man.
I could have. But we did some other stuff too. We found the actual Highlander beach that, Connor was learning the quickening and all that from Ramirez and running with the stag. And we had trouble reaching out to people or getting answers from people of where that was, but we found it. And there's like a beach before this that a lot of people think is the Highlander beach, but it's not the Highlander beach until you find that little rock outcrop there that you could see in the movie that zooms in from a distance. And then we did some other stuff too. We did a cute little picture there because we were really excited because that's the thing that Erin and I wanted to find first. We wanted to find the beach because we had not seen anyone personally say they did it and took convincing enough pictures. And then of course, remember this castle, Eileen Doon Castle,
Yeah.
Castle MacLeod, but it's actually the McCrae Castle in real life. And we went out for dinner and got some pictures taken there and there.
And you're wearing a very nice skirt.
Yeah, kilt, baby. Wearing some kiltage.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. And the swamp bog was a little low at that time. Kind of goes up and down with the thing, but it's pretty cool there. Yeah, but we got married, dude. Check this out. That's our wedding picture outside the Las Vegas Wedding Chapel. And for those of you that don't know, Erin and I are also huge Aliens fan, especially the 1986 film. And we got married on Alien Day. LV-426, that's the colony. They found the alien pods. Well, we got married in Las Vegas on April 26th. And so Las Vegas 426. We got nerdy.
And I'm just going to let you know, I told all of my nerd friends that they just need to step up their game because that is hands down the nerdiest thing ever. I mean, straight up, like that's subtle. Oh, look at that beautiful, beautiful bride.
Yeah, that's my lovely bride there, Erin. And instead of bouquets, we decided to bring face huggers and then put like these little bouquets they gave us and use them as the bouquet holders. So that was fun. And I was dressed in silver and black. I had to pay some tribute to my Raider fandom there. So yeah, I actually like that picture. It came out nice there. So
I got to give you props also for doing your wedding your way.
Yeah, Yeah, we
I've
did it.
known a lot of people wanted to do the non-traditional, have fun, make it about them, and there's always like that. Eventually, they just do like one nerdy thing, like one of the cakes. But like you guys did it up. This is absolutely 100% your wedding, and I'm proud of you. Like
Thanks,
that.
man.
That's cool.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, and the place, the Viva Las Vegas Wedding Chapel is great because they have different themes. One, we picked the graveyard theme because my wife is a huge horror fan. She loves the horror movies, and we decided to also do a lot of fun pictures too. Here's a little collage of a bunch of our stuff. We even had a alien face hugger cake. Our friend Todd, we put one of the face huggers coming out of him too, which is pretty funny. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, I
And
was watching on the live stream. It looked like a blast. So.
we had like I think like a few hundred people streaming it eventually and then watching it on YouTube as well. So yes, and the video is on YouTube. Just look up Kevin and Erin's LV426 wedding. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. So but
Karen 11, what?
would I say you wanted it, would you want to call us Kevin and Erin? Would you want to call us?
I mean, Irvin kind of works.
Yeah. We like Kevin. We're gonna go with Kevin.
Yeah.
That's good. That's gonna be our name.
I take Kevin every time I get a headache. So
nice. All right, dude. So we're gonna leave Joe's here unless you got anything else you want to add.
No, man, I think I'm good. So
all right, cool. Well, let's head on.
Joe.
All right, we got some Highlander stuff to talk about here, bro. Got some stuff to talk about. So I got some fun slideshow stuff here for you guys that are watching the YouTube feed here, and it's not the best quality, but you know what? When I see a screenshot of the DVD menus, the original DVD menus, I get kind of nostalgic kind of going through. What do you think?
Yeah, same here. And I also have this thing where I remember how much better it looked than like standard def and VHS. Like
Right.
I just remember when that DVD like quality came out, like whoa. And now I go back to like DVDs, like there's a Blu-ray I loaned somebody and I never got it back, but I still got the DVD and I'm like, wow, the quality is so weird. So yeah. It's cool seeing it though.
Well, we're talking about the first episode we're talking about is The Vampire, and this originally aired March 7th, 1994, written by Jean-Vincent Fournier and directed by Dennis Barry, and of course produced by Ken Gord. Episode synopsis: Nicolas Ward has covered his murder tracks throughout his history by capitalizing on whatever superstitions were in play. In the 1840s, Ward murdered several men in Paris, but arranged the evidence so people looked like they were in a string of deaths that was at the work of vampires. He killed, as always, for profit and money. In 1994, a friend of Duncan's is murdered in his pool. After his wake, Duncan notices an immortal named Nicolas Ward, who had once killed several people Duncan knew. Arranging his victims to look like a vampire was responsible. Ward, back in Paris and once again targeting rich young women and once again escaping detection, but Duncan MacLeod exposes the latest version of the serial killer and intends to stop Ward before he can kill again. So yeah, we got this guy. He's kind of mean, man. Looking like a vampire. Let's go back to this guy real quick here. I'll bring him up here because he's a predator, dude.
Yeah. It's hard to take anybody with lamb chop or what is the mutton chops like that very seriously. That's kind of crazy. Well, but
yeah, he looks the part, man. He really does. And we've been talking about, of course, the actor that plays him here, Jeremy. But let's give a little backstory on Nicholas here, according to Highlander Wiki. Nicolas Ward was first hanged in 1525 for a series of murders in South London. It was part of a plot to enrich himself through the deaths of other people. A series of murders left at the end, and young pretty widow, his sole beneficiary of an estate. Weddings. There we go. From whom Ward had married, murdered, and inherited property from the money from the surviving spouse. In 1840, he heard the three business partners had desecrated a church in Transylvania, after which he took employment as their lawyer and hatched a new plan. One by one, he killed all three and made it appear that they were killed by a vampire. At this point, this is where he met, of course, immortal Duncan MacLeod, and thus we know the story going on from there. As a villain overall, what is your opinion on Mr. Nicolas Ward here?
It's very interesting. He's like 2 steps less moral than Amanda. Because I mean, even in Reunion, you know, she's kind of marrying for money and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's been there. You know, she's definitely not above stealing stuff. I think the way he enjoys it and the fact that he gets the upper hand with MacLeod a couple times really sets him up as maybe a better bad guy than we remember him as, because he's not the overly melodramatic, angry guy.
Right.
This is a dude loving life and willing to stab people, and I can sympathize with a character like that.
I love the fact that he's all dressed in white in present day, and you're right. And he's got some Jeremy Brudenell really brought this character to life and gave some great lines and some back and forth again with Duncan. And this picture that I have up, I love this scene in the beginning where Duncan feels the buzz and he goes in this kind of cool underground area, and this is one of the areas I really want to try to visit. I gotta hit up Andy to see if he knows where this is, but it was really cool. And then I got to give a shout out. I pulled some screenshots off the web here in present day. When you see Nicolas Ward wearing his black outfit with a leather jacket, I got to say, this leather jacket with the snake skin in the front of it, dude, I want that thing.
I feel like this jacket made it over to America somewhere around 2008, 2009. Somewhere in the American South. And, a certain man named Tallahassee may have found it.
Well played, sir. Yes, well played. This thing's pretty fly, though. It's pretty cool. But let's I want to talk about vampire a little bit more, and I always love to go to our friend Billy Dew, who she does some great reviews of TV series and movies, and you can check out her stuff online called dewsreviews.com, and she did a review of this episode here. And let me go ahead and give a little credit here visually here, coming up right there. There we go. Highlander the Vampire. Quote, "The thought of someone living forever. Absurd, don't you think? It was great to be back in Paris," she says, "because at least the scenery was fabulous. But the rest of the episode, not so much. Ward is an emotional vampire, of course, not a real one." I love that she says emotional vampire. "He married rich women and sucked them dry, murdering others in their lives as needed in order to secure his access to the money. Although he was visually stunning and good with a sword, Nicolas Ward wasn't even that interesting as an evil immortal, and flashbacks were really, really long and really, really bad. I had absolutely no interest in the pointless, pun intended, death of Baines, but the aspiring vampire hunter. Utter waste of time. Yes, it was sort of an interesting idea, an immortal masquerading as other type of fantastic creature. Immortals on this show are very human, though bringing in vampires, even fake ones, didn't work. This was undoubtedly another niche exploration attempt on the part of the writers, which would explain the upcoming Pharaoh's daughter as well. She goes on to say Adrian Paul looked good. Flashbacks, 1840 Paris, the mid-mosh of Ward with some of the marital victims and Baines, a vampire hunter. Note the vast amounts of fog during many of the flashback scenes, as well as an absolutely fabulous quickening. Yes, it was a Dennis Barry episode. She goes on to say Michelle Moto has replaced Charlie in the cast. As I said before, I find Marie's character to be even more annoying than the Charlie character. This was not the move in the right direction. Richie still in the cast, but not in France. But Joe's in Paris. Duncan and Nicolas Ward fell from a great height and landed on their feet, which wasn't humanly possible. Something similar happened in the first part of Unholy Alliance. Again, I think they were exploring where they were going with in the series.
Can I also say, like, they landed in a room with a roof over it?
Yeah.
So they transported, like, you see them doing a safety fall over that rail. So it's like it's butt first, and they're like parallel to the ground, and then they land in a room, and as they pull back, you see the roof over them, and they land on their feet. Like, okay, they have learned to transport through time and space. They're Nightcrawler at this point.
Yes. She quotes Baines in this quote, "Prince of Darkness, creatures of the night, immortals. Do they not exist for you?" Interesting. She gives this a 1 star for the story. I'll give it an extra half point for the duel and the quickening. 1.5 out of 4 possible stars. She wasn't a fan of this. This was written a while ago too, just a heads up. But your thoughts on the review, and do you agree and disagree on any of the points?
I agree with it a lot. Other than in rewatching it, I enjoyed it more than I expected to, based on my memory of it. Maybe I was, watching it for a purpose for kind of the first time. I did enjoy it, and seeing just how good Jeremy Brudenell is. I mean, dude is chewing scenery. I mean, you saying he's dressed in white is like, he's not just dressed in white. He's dressed like David Bowie in the Dancing in the Streets video that he did with Mick Jagger before Live Aid. And he's like, and he's David Bowie in the back too. And he's like a better version of Lord Byron.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And when she kind of brought up like, we do Pharaoh's Daughter right after this, I'm like, okay, so we've got a mummy, we got a vampire, and we've got Frankenstein. We are just a werewolf short of the Monster Squad here. I think there was a huge opportunity that was missed with this.
Funny.
But,
I like that.
Yeah. But, as always, she's actually got a pretty good stance on this. It's still fun, and beautiful imagery in this, all the way around. I mean, that shot at the soccer stadium or the racetrack, wherever they recorded that, I mean, it's iconic. I mean,
you're talking about the quickening. The quickening, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the quickening is one of the best quickenings with all those flyers going around. They really, Dennis Barry really got a good quickening out of this.
Probably the best daytime quickening.
I have a feeling though, and I'm wondering if Billy, if she were to see it again, if she still feels the same way. Because my opinion has changed on things over the years. And I think this episode actually, a lot of people I think probably panned soon after or later, but I think it's gained some nostalgia, I think. Not just with the quickening, but just the fact that someone was using superstition to his advantage. And you had that interesting little contraption to suck blood and leave marks like a vampire would, which I think is actually kind of brilliant, to be honest with you. I think it was a smart thing to do, because you're feeding into the fears of people and using it to your advantage.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I will say there's a lot of stupid people in this episode. If somebody like walked to the edge of the pool and put their hand on my head, I'd swim away. I wouldn't be like, stop drowning me. I'd just like go somewhere else. But, that's what Michael Christian did too. When he kills the first guy, he just kind of stands around the corner waiting to be noticed and then runs away. Like,
we got a picture up here of the duel before the quickening, of course. A really good fight scene. But you've got some points you wanted to bring up. Throw a few of them out there.
Let's see. Duncan is getting involved by joining this company in like one of the worst parts of American history, when he's talking about like, oh yes, we get some stuff from Africa and then it's taken over to the colonies, and it was what's called triangular trade, and it's basically what started the slave trade, and this would have been the height of it. So he's actually investing in a company that got the materials in Africa and Asia, brought them over to the United States, where everything was kind of made and transported and then brought back to Europe for sale. And this was kind of a dark period in history. But that said, this is some really fun filming because they've figured some workarounds for filming in Paris. For the most part, when you see episodes prior to this, they're in interior locations, which is just talking to the owner, or they're right near the barge, or they're in what's called the peripherique in Paris. Like basically, like there's a big highway that goes around the city. On the outside, it's a whole lot easier to film than on the inside.
Right.
But there are rules in place. Like it doesn't count if you don't have a tripod. So they started hiring Steadicam operators.
Ah.
So that scene where they're filming McLeod before he goes to try to find where Nicholas is getting married, and then
Right.
there's a scene prior to that filmed in almost the exact same place. That's right in front of the Pantheon. One of the hardest places to get a permit to film, but you don't need a permit if there's no tripod and it's a crew of less than 10 people. When I was working on a documentary, that was one of the little loopholes that they let me know. So like, oh yeah, as long as I keep it under this number and I don't break these rules, I can do whatever I want in Paris. And so you'll start to see a lot of this. They do the same thing later on in Pharaoh's Daughter.
Okay.
When they're filming in front of
a little bit of guerrilla fighting here, shooting, guerrilla shooting here, fighting the law and getting underneath that. So yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the few times we see actual blood in the show.
True. Yeah. Especially when Alan Bain gets it. Yeah.
Yeah. And both of those stakings are like a little bit rougher than we're used to.
Yeah.
Let's see. And I just thought it was weird. He goes to say hi to Nikki's fiance. She offers him a beer and then goes and grabs an already open beer. She doesn't open the beer. She just grabs it and starts pouring like, okay, I've been on set. Like you don't, like they just didn't want to buy a fresh beer every time they poured it. So they just pour it back in the bottle.
That became funny. That became warm, yucky beer after a while there. Okay.
Exactly. And last but not least, again, with the stupid people, last time anyone sees Nikki alive is with Duncan. And Duncan had just come from the police station where he was interrogated for being a serial killer. That there's not an investigation into Duncan. Like, hey, where'd Nicolas Ward go? They have no travel documents whatsoever. Like, he should be, questioned.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, we're going to come back to this, but we still have another episode to talk about is, well, okay, wait, hold on real quick. Before we go, we do have to touch on the wedding thing here. And the reason why you brought these up is because, we're tying in the whole wedding theme here. The fact that Immortal is basically marrying rich women and then finding a way to get their money or getting in on deals with partnerships and then getting them murdered. It was a very clever way to basically stay rich if you're an immortal. Mm-hmm. And so I find his motives fascinating, actually, and a really good villain, so to speak.
Yeah, and it gives a different vibe than we've gotten because we have Piton, who always goes after the beautiful women, but not just because of like this transitory beauty. And the beauty fades and he finds another one, McLeod. It's all the same. But with this one, you can see the plot. There's one other thing. When he's about to die, he does the same defense that he did to Grayson.
Yes, you talk about Duncan. Yes, because he was down on his knee facing the opposite direction, and Nicholas thinks he has the advantage that he's about to come down on him. And then Duncan does the blind block behind him and then swivels around and slashes him and then slashes him again.
Yep. And the next line pretty much is history is just one big circle. So he's they're borrowing from themselves.
And Nicolas Ward then says everyone's a critic.
Exactly.
I love it. What a line to say to go out. I love that. That's really cool. Well, we are going to continue the honeymoon, or I'm sorry, the wedding, and actually there's some honeymoons there. We're going to continue the wedding theme here, right over on the other side of this break, and we're going to take a quick break from the immortal world of Highlander and let you know what other great shows are here on the Fandom Podcast Network, and we will be discussing Till Death. So I'll be right back. Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We'd like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to these other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, discussing the latest in entertainment pop culture. Bloody Kings, Immortals Take Notice, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theaters, where we celebrate our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie and TV pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville show. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our show covering the time-traveling Doctor Who universe with host Dan Hadley. Lethal Mullet, an 80s and 90s action film podcast with host Adam P. O'Brien. Also check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast with hosts Scott, Derek, and Nathan. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. And check out our newest shows, The Fandom Show, our monthly Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube exclusive show about the month's hottest topics in fandom, and the FPN True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the related Marvel television and streaming MCU universe, including the connections to the original Marvel comics. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on several platforms. Please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel to receive notifications of new podcast episodes and live events. You can enjoy all of the Fandom Podcast Network audio podcasts on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. The Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network and on Twitter at FanPod Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom. All right, welcome back to Highlander Podcast, episode 166, and we are discussing Immortal Weddings, the vampire and Till Death with, that Jeremy Brudenell guy who's in both episodes, Lee. So we're going to take a little different turn on a different character here that he plays. Maybe a little more likable, I'm going to guess. Just maybe a little bit more likable.
Just a hint.
Just a hint, yes. And, of course, that episode is Till Death. And that episode aired May 7th, 1994. Also directed by Dennis Barry and produced by Ken Gord. Quick little synopsis here. We've got, when Gina and Robert de Valicourt met 300 years ago, even Gina's suitors, Duncan MacLeod and Fitzcairn, had to admit they were destined for each other. Each century, as Robert and Gina renew their wedding vows before their friends and fellow immortals, their love grew stronger. But now their marriage is on the rocks. MacLeod decides it's up to him to reunite the once happy couple, and he enlists an unwilling accomplice in his cunning plan. Would that be Amithos? Yes, this is a fun episode, and we are talking about Robert de Valicourt here. Also played by Jeremy Brudenell, a much nicer guy, Lee.
Yep, and it's de Valicourt. So
say it again.
De Valicourt.
Yes, you're right. De
yeah,
Valicourt. Yes,
and it's a mouthful, but the French are very particular about all this stuff. It's interesting that he's still playing a thief.
Yes,
he's a pirate. Oh yes, Blackbeard, Bluebeard, drank a sail with all of his men believe. He's a pirate, he's a thief, and he gets into this trouble going after a woman's money, and he gets to do the flip side of a very similar character, very charismatic. They obviously still have a very spicy love life. There's a lot of role play going on, a lot of, consensual rough stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Sword fights, that's kind of hot.
Yeah. And can we just say, they were zooming in on that statue's butt at the beginning of the episode, maybe a little too much. It's like they're zooming straight in. Oh wait, no, they're the person over here.
I noticed that too. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, this was this is one of those fun, lighthearted episodes. But it has to do with an immortal wedding, because actually two immortals got married, which was an interesting story to see. And the fact that they were friends with MacLeod and Hugh, and before they got married, though, Fitz and Duncan courted the same woman, Gina. And I love, this is one of those episodes where we call Duncan raises his voice, because he
yes,
we get the little more of an accent, but because we know it's a fun episode when he raises his voice, and that's always fun. And of course, shot in and around Paris, which was great. Great flashback to great humorous moments as well. And then in present day, we get Mythos helping out a little bit, and there's that also had some fun moments there. But of course, as always, we're going to go back to our good friend Billy here, because she's got a review on this, and she starts with some quotes here. Robert, just give me a jab, not too deep. Mythos, where's your sense of trauma? As John Barrymore was once rumored to have said when he was dying is easy, comedy is hard. Highlander, best known for adventure and drama, managed to put some truly wonderful comic episodes in these last 3 seasons. This has always been one of my favorites. Let's start with the flashbacks. Fitz was one of my favorite immortals. Roger Daltrey and Adrian Paul have exceptional acting chemistry. They just felt like best friends right from the start. Watching them do a scene together always makes me smile. They could even pull off slapstick, like getting stuck in the same door together. They made it look easy. This stuff is not easy. Duncan and Fitz were funny. The whole thing with Duncan and Mythos and the barge was even funnier. Duncan's friendship with Mythos was completely different from the friendship of Fitz. Mythos really didn't want to help Duncan with this romantic scheme and get the how do you say it? De Valicourts?
De Valicourt, yes.
De Valicourts back together, as he did anyway for Duncan's sake, and he never intended to keep the barge. He just wanted to give Duncan a hard time. So Mythos has a fun side, but like everything else about Mythos, he has a bit of an edge, doesn't he? Gina and Robert were fun, even though their marital problems were just an excuse for the episode. I like the idea of them remarrying every 100 years. Although, if they were driving each other's nuts, why didn't they just take long, separate vacations every now and then? There's a good reason why Amanda isn't around all the time. She and Duncan would end up at each other's throats. I can't imagine being married to the same person for 300 years. 300 freaking years, no matter how wonderful they are. She makes a good point there, Lee. I just wanted to stop at the review for a second, because can you imagine Duncan and Amanda always together? I think that they would end up killing each other.
Yeah, I don't think their moral codes don't line up. You know, their sexual codes do every so often, but I don't think they work as a couple. As much as we love her, it doesn't.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind that we're still in the theme with the weddings here, and she mentions the flashbacks, 1921 France, our introduction to Robert and Gina Valicourt, who liven up their extremely long marriage with sexy role-playing games, as you mentioned, Lee. 1696 France, Duncan and Fitz were both in love with Gina, and she met Robert, and it was love at first sight. And I think I got a couple scenes here with Duncan and Mythos in the barge, and there's Robert there, and of course there's Gina. 1796 France, Duncan, Fitz, and Gina in drag rescued Robert from the guillotine. I think if I were an immortal, they would have stayed out of France during that period. They were beheading every Tom, Dick, and Harry. It was fun to see that Sean Burns at Gina and Robert's 100th anniversary party, like that too. I guess Duncan didn't meet Sean in 1917 then. Bits and pieces. Mythos revealed that he had been married 68 times, but never to another immortal. That tantalizing little tidbit must have been the source of a bunch of fan fiction. Lee, 68 times he's been married.
So close. He was so close. He should have done it one more time. That would have been nice.
Yes. I like this scene right here, by the way, after given Mythos messing around with Duncan there is pretty funny. Robert also calls Mythos Pearson, she says. Mythos criticized Duncan's collection of opera. He wanted Springsteen and Queen. Yes! That was pretty funny. Some quotes here. Fitz, I don't quite know what you'd do without me, McLeod. Duncan goes, I can dream. Duncan says, Gina, give Robert another chance. Gina, he's had 1,000 chances, Duncan. I gave that man the best centuries of my life. Duncan said to Mythos, you better make it look good. Mythos says, like you say, darling, I'm an actor. Billy gave this a 4 out of 4 stars. Your thoughts on her review?
I'd say it's pretty fair. There is a quote that you skipped over that's actually kind of important.
Please bring it up.
Yeah. When Mythos says, I've crossed the Atlantic to Iceland with a bunch of Irish monks, She kind of, in her notes, she's like, Rowboat, was this mythos exaggerating for effect, perhaps? That actually is an Irish legend called Brendan's Voyage. There's and the date is wrong, and Highlander does this a few times. There's a few things that they allude to in history, but they just change it, especially if there's a Catholic saint involved.
Right.
But one of the monks on the voyage, there was 5 of them in this rowboat, and if Brendan was one, Mythos was one, the other 3 would be unimportant to anybody that wasn't familiar with the legend. One of them was a guy, MacLudovicus, which turned into MacLeod. He was a Welsh saint. There is a town called Saint-Malo, one of my favorite places in France. If you and Erin go on a trip to France, I'll recommend it. You will absolutely love it. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the country, and very quaint. But there is a Saint MacLeod.
How funny.
And if he was in that boat, that would explain why he likes Duncan so much, why he keeps looking after him. He's like, I knew your great, 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 great something, grandpa. And it's a very, like, you have to be a huge Catholic history nerd. And I have to be huge and a nerd. So the Catholic history was kind of easy coming to me.
That's great, man.
That's just a weird
really
little
cool
thing.
Well, I thought we would discuss Robert here a little bit of backstory, according to Highlander Wiki, which is always fun to talk about. Robert de Valicourt suffered his first death in 1493 as a seaman who fell overboard in the rough seas and drowned. He was still connected to the sea and sailed over the centuries with half of the pirates through the Caribbean, including Sir Francis Drake, circa 1540 to 1596, and the infamous Blackbeard, about 1680 to 1718. He amassed considerable wealth and earned the title of Baron. De Valicourt resided 1696 in a chateau near Paris and was, according to the Watcher records, still a pirate. 1696, Robert surprised 3 unknown immortals in his chateau, Angelina, in the company of Duncan MacLeod and Hugh Fitzcairn. And of course, we know the story going on from there. Fun episode here, Lee. And I want to talk about Jeremy for a little bit here. It's interesting. I mean, they were able to make him look completely different. He's very charming. But I like the fact that they can have these actors come back, just give them a different wardrobe and let them show how good an actor are by playing a villain and a good guy, a charming good guy for that matter too.
And really, like, I mean, back then we didn't have, we had VHS if we managed to tape it at the right time. So we could have gone back and maybe noticed that this was the same actor, but it's not like it's the internet now, so there probably is a huge Jeremy Brudenell fan base, but you wouldn't have known. And to me, like, I look at this guy's portrayal and the way that he chews up scenery. He's obviously had a lot of experience in stage combat. His fights are just fantastic and very easy. Makes me a little bummed that we didn't see more from him, but there are so many actors like that just give great performance, but don't get picked up or don't have longevity in their career. And I think this guy really could have had it. I mean, he's compelling in both roles. And, let's be honest, those baby blues, I mean, that's a heck of a look.
Good looking guy, and obviously a good actor. They chose well when they put him in these roles. And I just, like I said, this is one of those fun episodes, but you also have some quotes, or not quotes, but you have some observations you wanted to share regarding Till Death.
Yeah. The sword that Duncan is using in 1696 when they break into the chateau, that's the same sword that he's carrying in Waterloo in season 1.
Okay.
This is one of the few times that we see severed heads in the series. When they go to rescue him, like, we never see the heads. I think we saw like one drop before, but we've got like multiple severed heads in this episode. And then just this weird line, who mets for life? Swans, geese, lobster. Where'd the lobster come from? And, like, who's checking in to see, like, Mr. and Mrs. Lobster still together? Yeah, they're there for life.
Okay, hold on. When did this episode air again? March 7th, 1994.
Yeah.
I have a feeling this is right around that famous Friends episode where she's your lobster or he's your lobster.
Oh,
Remember?
is that a thing? I never actually, I worked in a movie theater, so Thursday night was the night to
Yeah,
put
it
movies
was a
together. I never
famous
saw it.
episode where Ross and Rachel, where they were on and off again. And I think it was a famous episode of the prom video where Rachel finally sees what Ross was going to try to do during the prom because she thought that she got stood up. And then last minute, her date showed up and he was disappointed. And earlier in the episode, Phoebe being, the interesting and kind of weird one says, they're lobsters. They mate for life. So that's why I brought that up.
Okay.
So what other observations you got?
I was going to say that she reminded me a lot of Grace Chandel from Saving Grace, that season 1 episode.
Ah, yes. Okay.
It was I think it was actually a better flirtationship that they had. I mean, obviously there was a lot of affection. The scene where she's talking about divorcing Robert, you can tell that they had been on each other's minds.
Yes.
And that the door had never closed, but they'd never been able to walk through it. And that takes a lot to do in, 45 seconds of dialogue where you don't directly do it. So, I mean, that little bit of acting was absolutely beautiful. Bringing Sean Burns into this as well, having a scene with Sean and
nice
Fitz,
continuity there too.
Yeah. And that these are two deaths that Duncan feels a whole lot of guilt about.
Yeah, he does.
And they're both kind of in there. And this is like the second of his 3 appearances. The last one being Forgive Us Our Trespasses and, of course, Deliverance. I think if I hadn't read the notes, I would have completely glossed over that this was Sean Burns, which is kind of the unfortunate thing. I feel like he was one of those like Constantine where they're trying to make him more but never found a way to do it. He would have been an interesting character to develop. And then I was just going to say this is a really unhealthy relationship in general. It's founded like, oh, yes, you stole a whole bunch of things from me. And he's like, oh, that's all right. I know this guy was going to kill me, but I'm just going to flirt with you. And then, they have their violent sex every so often. And then he lies to her and manipulates her, gets her to think that somebody was going to kill him. And she almost kills somebody for him. But she's fine with it at the end. Like, she figures out like what Mythos was doing. She's like, okay, I guess you just like tricked me into feeling for you again. Like,
almost tricked her into killing the oldest immortal on the planet.
Yeah, and that would have been kind of weird, but I really did enjoy this one. A lot of fun, and it's always cool seeing a sword fight on horseback.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, I didn't want to forget another segment that we have here. We're going to go into the Immortal Buzz here and see what our friends at Bloody King said. So here's some Immortal Buzzing. So we put this post on Bloody Kings here to see what some friends would say, and we had some responses here. Holly McMiller said, I love Jeremy Brudenell. The Vampire was a good episode, though Till Death had a soft spot in my heart because we get a flashback with Fitzcairn. Robert de Valicourt is a great character, trying to save his marriage by pulling both Duncan and the Mythos into helping him say he's sorry to Gina. A lot of great scenes and an almost bargeless McLeod too. Vince Stefanelli just quoted, everyone's a critic. Love it. Clinton Rawls said, both episodes make me a bit nostalgic for how TV used to be. Many believe we're currently in a golden age of television, and I don't dispute that, but TV seasons now are so rigidly constructed that there's rarely, if ever, any filler episodes. For decades, it wasn't uncommon to see more experimental episodes once in a while, whether a show tackled an entirely different genre, changed up the setting, or let the cast cut loose in comedy and musical numbers. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but it was nice to have a variety and be surprised. I thought that was a great comment because it's happening a lot now, Lee. And I said, great point. I miss episodic TV where you can tell a story outside the whole mythology arc. And that's been kind of my problem with current television. And I don't want to get too much deep into it, but a good example is the newest Star Trek, which is Strange New Worlds, because the earlier new Star Trek, like Star Trek Picard and Discovery, as well as a lot of the Netflix shows and Amazon shows, is there's a whole story arc over the whole season. You don't get a chance to pull away from that too much anymore and have these little fun adventures. Until Death is a great example of that.
Yeah, and it gets, both ways. I think can kind of be sort of tricky. I mean, if you look at Highlander, how many continuity errors do we have? Same thing with my favorite is Saved by the Bell. When it's episodic, it's like, okay, yeah. Slater speaks Spanish at home. No, he doesn't speak Spanish. He only speaks French. Like there's all these weird little things when there's like not an overarching idea. It gets a little tricky. And I think one of the things that they did good in this show was that they had a B story that went through. It wasn't like a season long arc. And there, honestly, season 3 could have been a season long arc. It had a pretty good format underneath.
Right.
But by being able to move away from that, because not everything in our day-to-day life has a purpose. And I think I see what he's saying about that. It's a good observation. I think somewhere in the middle is the right way to go, though.
Yeah, no, I just, it's refreshing to get back to the, you can have a season arc, but I don't think that we need to have the heavy drama all the way through dealing with it. It can come back and here and there, but spending more time with characters and development is something I really like. And that's one of those fun things that Highlander does. Dominic Stark said, enjoyed both episodes a lot. Till Death might be my favorite Highlander comedy. That was pretty cool. So that was the Immortal Buzz. So Lee, Highlander and Immortal Weddings discussion here. I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
If you were to settle down and get married or have an event that was Highlander themed, you could go anywhere you wanted, do anything that you wanted. I'm not trying to, corner you and pick something in particular, but if you could have your Highlander-ish themed or feel or whatever, what would it be and what would you like to do?
Well, aside from having the harem that they had in finale part 1,
I like how you I like how you go from Saved by the Bell and harem.
What can I say? I'm a pop culture dork. And it's not like, I mean, Saved by the Bell, that's Zach Morris. He has morals even worse than mine. But I'd probably go to Paris. City's always been very close to my heart. I'd probably do something crazy there. Do one of the, maybe do a small service in, Saint-Julien, something like that.
Nice.
Since you can't do Notre Dame for the next quite a while, probably at least another decade. But that city has just been so important to me for such a long time.
Having lived there, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and even like, growing up in, crappy little towns in Iowa and Nebraska and South Dakota, like have something beautiful to dream about. And then actually being able to go there and see it. It's, it would definitely be Paris. I'm assuming most of my weddings will be in Paris, either that or at the Justice of the Peace with a shotgun behind me. But yeah, that's kind of how I'd do it. I'd definitely do a sword arch, because I'm that dork and it would probably annoy my wife. I just wanted her to know, like, I'm going to be dorky and annoying, just right out of the gate, because you gotta keep consistent in that sort of thing.
Right. Oh, that's cool. I like that. Well, interesting story actually is that Erin and I, before we got married, we actually considered getting married in Scotland at Eilean Castle. because they do host weddings there, and they have an affordable. They have different packages. They had,
Yeah.
I think the cheapest package I want to say was like around $2,000. I think it was, or 2,000 pounds or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they provide a small little thing, someone to marry you and stuff, and maybe I think a small reception or something. I can't remember, but it goes up from there. But if you do research there, you see a lot of people do get married there. We'd actually considered that, but then we originally settled to get married in her hometown of Melbourne, Australia, because that's where her mother is and her family is, and that didn't work out. So we decided to just get married in Vegas, and then maybe hold a different ceremony. We'll hold a different ceremony or gathering once we get back to Australia. But we're planning on going back to Scotland again, and we wanted to. When we were there last in 2018 and you saw the pictures, we wanted to at least dress up and get some nice pictures in front of the castle, Eileen Doon Castle, because it's such an iconic and one of the most beautiful castle in Scotland as well. So, but it would be fun to maybe even do the church, the Highlander church, because you could, they have several different types of ceremonies there, and when you show up there, you want to show up at a certain time. If there's a ceremony going on or a service going on, you just have to wait till it's done. But you could do that as well. So any other Highlander-y themed things that you would do, even if it's not a wedding?
I mean, I definitely do the travels. I definitely do all sorts of crazy stuff. But you just reminded me, a friend of mine, two friends of mine, got engaged right after visiting Eileen Doon Castle a few years back. And this guy, his proposal, I straight up told him, you can't be telling anybody about this, man. It's going to set the bar way too high for us mere mortals. They're Airbnb-ing at this estate. It's a castle. It's got walls. It's at the very least a villa.
Right.
And he's like, hold on, babe. And he puts his arm out, and a falcon comes over, lands either on his arm or her arm.
Nice.
I just remembered this horror story because it sets the bar too high. And then in the dresses, it's got the ring, and he proposes there with not one but 7 rings.
Nice.
And this is my friend Clint and my friend Amanda. They're fantastic people, incredibly creative. She's a Highlander dork too, but I might have to have them on because they sent me pictures right outside Eileen Doon Castle, guess where we are, and I'm like, I know where you are.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because if you can't do a wedding there, why not do a proposal there or something, do something that you can experience Highlander there. And I also recommend going up to Isle of Skye, and they actually have the real Clan MacLeod castle up there, Castle Dunvegan, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I recommend, if you do go there, make sure you pay the extra money to check out the gardens, because that gets you around down towards the bottom of the castle, and you get a really cool shot from around the little bay there, and you get a really beautiful shot of the castle. Because if you just tour the castle, you don't get to get pictures of how it looks when you see people coming in on boats or what the seal see all the time. So
I always recommend, every castle I go to, I'll always do the gardens, and I almost always enjoy the gardens more.
Funny you say that. When I was in Ireland and I went to Cork to kiss the Blarney Stone, as fun as that was, the surrounding gardens around it were more impressive.
Yeah, because you basically stand in line to kind of lean weird backwards and deviate at least 2 vertebrae to kiss that damn thing.
Yeah,
it's even trickier when you have shoulders as wide.
Hold on. Are you saying we're Eskimo brothers when it comes to the Blarney Stone?
Pretty much, yeah. So
nice.
See, that's why we get along so well.
That's right. Okay, so just last comments on weddings, Highlander weddings, these 2 episodes. Jeremy Brudenell, The Vampire Until Death.
I really like it. Again, Jeremy Brudenell gave 2 really good performances, 2 very different characters. Had a lot of fun with it. I did these originally, kind of to be in theme, and then in rewatching, realized just how good they are. Um, and yeah, this was fun. The only other real option was, Highlander Endgame, and that's not particularly romantic.
No,
It's
it's
like,
not. Yeah, that didn't end well.
I mean, obviously, with the chest bursters, and the face huggers, I mean, it would have sort of fit with your wedding theme, but, stabbing somebody on the wedding night, maybe not so great. But yeah, I missed you, buddy. I'm really happy that this finally happened because, I joined the network just, about a month or so before the COVID shutdown. And I remember, talking to you before doing podcasts, and I know how rough it was for you. So I really am very happy that you checked this off your list, that you got to see your lady, that you had such a great time with each other. And I mean, I can see in these pictures how happy you guys are. And, I see her commenting on your posts, and it's like, oh man, like, I'm happy for my bro.
I appreciate that so much, Lee. Thank you. That means a lot. And the response that we got from people, and people that were crying while they were watching the video live stream, and people that would go back and then re-watch it when they couldn't see it live. And we were just so excited that it finally happened. It finally happened. We're Highlander fans. We fell in love because of Highlander. That brought us together. We had our first date in London watching the 30th anniversary of Alien. So we shared our fandom in that. It was a dream come true, and we did it our way. And we had some great friends with us, and it was just a lot of fun. And for those of you that are considering any Highlander themed things, there's a lot of options. And if you're wondering where stuff is, let us know, or hit up our friend Andy Sloan. He's the Highlander locations master, and he knows where stuff is. And I know a lot of our friends in the Blood of Kings group family there have done their own Highlander excursions and site, and that's one of the cool things about the Highlander TV series and the movie series, is they've been to some freaking cool places, Lee.
Yeah. And even the castle that they had for the Valicours, such a great Louis XIII style, beautifully appointed. It fits with the theme. I just love everything they did with these episodes. They deserve maybe another star from Billy Dew for the vampire. That was 1.5 wasn't enough, but I usually agree with her, but I think 2.5 is about right.
Right. All right, man. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here, because we've been talking a lot about weddings. So let's wrap things up and close things out here, man. This has been really, really fun. All right, let's get into some contact information here. First of all, subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube, please. And if you're listening to this, make sure you watch it too on YouTube and give it a like. Hit that little like button, leave some comments. We appreciate that, and share it. And most important, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because Blood of Kings podcasts are going to be hitting YouTube. If you're listening to the audio podcast, our master feed is at fpnet.podbean.com. And if you just want to search out Blood of Kings on that website, you just hit the little Blood logo, and you hit the little thing there, and you can see all the things. And by the way, I was going to mention real quickly, I forgot to mention that when I got back from meeting Erin for the first time back in 2016, we actually had her on. I want to say it was like episode 9 of Blood of Kings, interviewing her, talking to her about her experience there in Scotland, and meeting Clancy Brown, one of her idols, because he had been the guest there at the 30th anniversary of the original Highlander. That they were showing there in the 4K release there. And so that might have brought our relationship a little bit longer.
And
brought it along.
Yeah. Didn't one of the Jonathans also get a picture of her talking to Clancy at that event?
Actually, it was the other way around. It was so Jonathan Melville, who, of course, over my shoulder here, has written the awesome Highlander book here, the A Kind of Magic, Making an Original Highlander. Jonathan Melville got his interview at that same event that Erin was at. and someone had taken a picture of him interviewing him, and off in the background you see Erin waiting along the line there, waiting to talk to him. And she got pictures of him a little bit with him a little bit later. She was showing her she's got a Kurgan Highlander sleeve tattoo on her right arm. She was showing that off, got a picture with him pointing at it. Really, really, really cool. So
there's one other thing that you need to just remind everybody of: the proposal.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was a lot of fun.
Didn't even know you before I saw the pictures of this. This went viral.
Yeah, no, it did. It was really cool. So, as I mentioned earlier, Erin is a huge fan of horror films, and her favorite film of all time is the original Evil Dead, starring Bruce Campbell. And I arranged when I was living out in Georgia for when she came to visit me in 2017. We went to Walker Stalker Convention, of course, very popular for the Walking Dead fans and all horror genre. And Bruce Campbell was there, not only signing autographs but taking pictures. And I signed us up for 3 pictures, one with both of us, one with each of us. And I'm like, you know what? I think this is the moment. And right before we got our picture together, I knelt down on one knee, and Bruce knew exactly what was happening, because I'm sure this has happened before. And he told the cameraman, keep taking pictures. And we got like 7 or 8 great pictures that we got at the price of 3 pictures, and asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And there's some great pictures. So yeah.
And I saw those pictures on the Chive. Like, I would just scroll the Chive and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Wait, what's Chive?
Chive is basically Maxim magazine without words. It's basically hot women, jokes, cool cars, that sort of stuff. I just kind of scroll it. It's one of those, it's kind of like Reddit even. And so I just like scrolling and I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, and then like I start listening to the network maybe 6-7 months after that, because I started working in IT, and I'm just like, oh, Highlander, I'll listen to this Highlander podcast. And I'm hearing you talk about this, and I'm like, dude. And then it was about the same time that you had the contest, like, oh, give a 5-star review and blah, 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 and whoever has the best review will do your episode. And that was when I got Duende, and, and we did that. And, that's how I kind of got to know you.
That's funny how one thing leads to another. That's funny that you saw that. Yeah. Cause I remember we tweeted the picture and stuff like that. So that was really cool. That's awesome, man.
And you are an example of like making it work, dude. Like, straight up, I'm having a hard time with an 1.5-hour distance, with me and a certain lady. And like, you made it work through COVID. You made it work across time zones and like a 14-hour flight. Like, dude, much props to you, brother.
Thank you. Yeah,
happy.
It's when you reach a certain age and you have both been through a lot of stuff, and you realize, this is going to work. We're going to make it work, and we have. So we're excited about for our future and stuff. So Immortal Weddings. We're not immortal, but we're living like we are sometimes, and it's a lot of fun. So well, back to contact information here. I said, our fpnet.podbean.com is our master feed here at Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, the Bloody Kings podcast master feed can be found there as well. Just make sure you click on that. Bloody Kings is also on Twitter and Instagram. And as we've mentioned before, if you're listening to this or watching this and you haven't already, make sure you join the Bloody Kings Highlander Fandom Facebook group. We've got a lot of great fans in there sharing a lot of great Highlander fandom, so make sure you check that out. And also, we have a sister page for you gamers out there. Maybe you played that original Highlander CCG collectible card game, and it's continuing on with virtual cards that you can print out as well. And a lot of people are playing the old version as well. And there's actual tournaments and championships for this game still going on. Make sure you check out the Highlander the Bloody Kings, a Highlander CCG collectible card game and gaming discussion group page. That has its own Facebook page, and they're organizing all their events through there. And I really appreciate those guys doing that. You can email us at bloodykingspodcast@gmail.com. My name is Kevin Reitzel. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix, also on Facebook and the Bloody Kings page. Lee, or otherwise known as Darth Smooth, how can we find you?
You can find me fighting one of those young immortals that takes heads for sport. Otherwise, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at The Way of the Way. Find me under my name on Facebook.
Nice. Very, very nice, man. Again, support us on the Bloody Kings podcast. And you can do that by leave us a rated review on your podcast platform, including Apple Podcast, iTunes. All you got to do is just search for Fandom Podcast Network, because Bloody Kings is dropping on that feed there. And it's also jumping on the YouTube channel for Fandom Podcast Network. We love 5-star reviews. Please give us a shout out. Also, our TeePublic store. You can help support us there. I've got my Blood of Kings Team Iron Pipe t-shirt. If an immortal loses their sword, they've got an iron pipe to help save their lives, and we've seen it plenty of times. Lee, I've seen you rocking it as well. Much appreciated.
I also have my Team Iron Pipe lanyard that you guys sent me way back when, that I used when I was shooting the Super Bowl when I was filming here in Minneapolis. That was how I kept my credentials.
Nice. Yeah, that's a little collector. I still have some of those. I can still give them out at things, and maybe we'll have some fun with that. So Lee, thank you so much, man, for first of all bringing up the concept of this episode. I was saying, like, what do you want to talk about, man? We're like, let's kind of keep it casual, and you're like, no, let's do the wedding, man. Let's do the wedding thing. And it's fun.
Like, we got a lot of fans, and I mean, I think for everybody during shutdown, like, all these podcasts have kind of become important. Yeah. And I think you have a story that we should celebrate. And having something like this that fits with a theme we've been developing over the last year, with what's going on in lives and everything, like, just a couple of good feel-good episodes. I think it was a great way to go, and I want to celebrate you, buddy.
I thank you. And I have one last question for you. I just thought of it, and I want to throw this out to the viewers and the listeners. If you were immortal and you had immortal friends getting married, what would you bring them as presents? Cutlery? What would you do? I mean, what kind of present? Like, I mean, I guess it depends, of course, on the century. But let's say 2022, you're immortal, and there's a couple like the de Valicourts that have been married for, like, let's say 800 years. And 2022 is their 800th anniversary, and they're getting married again. What would you bring them?
Here's the thing. I'll always do a nice gift for the wedding, but after that, it's like, oh, you're renewing your vows. I'll show up, but I would not do anything for the 300th anniversary. Like, that's up to them. Like, I'll show up for the party.
This is 800th anniversary that I'm thinking, like, another couple, like 800 years. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I'll show up to the party, maybe, find something from that day, but,
What is the 800th anniversary? Did they ever go that high?
I think Kristen and Mythos didn't quite make it that long, but
no.
Or not Kristen, who is the witch? I'm blanking on her name. Tracy Scoggins.
Oh, yes. Drawing a blank here. Yeah, but I know you're talking about. Yeah. They could scream at each other, maybe. No, that's not a good idea. Cassandra, right?
Cassandra, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe get, I don't know, buy them tickets to separate resorts so that they can get some time away.
I might bring some wine and some cigars, maybe. That'd be kind of fun. I don't know. Yeah. I know. I don't know if I'd want to give them something that they would have to hold on to for a while, but just something that maybe meant something to them. I don't know. That would be a challenge.
Especially, like, with all the stuff that they have at their house, like, I mean, that's some serious art that they're rocking. They obviously have money, so it's like, okay, how do I outdo all this stuff? How do I not end up on the knick-knack shelf?
This is true. Well, Lee, thanks again, man. This was a lot of fun. Much appreciated, dude.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, I'm Kevin, and on behalf of Lee, thanks everyone for listening, and join us again next time here on the Fandom Podcast Network for another episode of Bloody Kings, a Highlander podcast. That sensation you are feeling is the quickening. We are one. We are immortals.
Farewell, dear shitheads.
Goodbye, everyone.